Welcome to NovoEDTalks, where we reveal real-world strategies and expert insights from learning and development professionals. In every episode, we chat with practitioners, course designers, learning strategists, and business leads. We hear about their experiences in the learning industry and predictions for the profession and the trends that they're seeing. But before we get started, a little bit about NovoEd. Founded at Stanford's Social Algorithms Lab in 2012, NovoEd is a people-centric, capability-building platform that combines social and collaborative learning to drive performance readiness at scale. Through cohort-based experiences centered around human interaction, NovoEd taps into collective wisdom, placing each learner at the center of perspective, application, and expertise. Large enterprises such as 3M, GE, Marriott International, and Nestle partner with NovoEd to accelerate their critical initiatives, reconnect teams, and achieve rapid alignment through learning that is felt, experienced, and swiftly transformed into impact. Now, let's meet our guest for today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NovoEDTalks podcast, a space for training trailblazers to get real. My name is Melissa Fisk. I'm the producer of the NovoEDTalks podcast, and today I am joined by Mark Monaghan, who is the Vice President of Organizational Development at iQor. Mark has been leading global leadership transformation for more than 40,000 employees across 10 countries, with a 35-year career spanning hospitality, HR, and executive leadership, including senior roles at Outback Steakhouse and J.K. Harris. He has earned 48 awards for innovative learning and development, including a Brandon Hall Gold Award and HR.com's 2025 HR Leader of the Year. Congrats, Mark. Mark holds dual master's degrees in HR and is also an executive coach. Based in Charleston, he's a devoted father, church leader, and sci-fi fan who loves to cook. Mark, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the NovoEDTalks podcast today. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And that was a great welcome. I hope I can live up to all that, Melissa.
I'm sure. But why don't you get started by just introducing yourself a little bit more, talking about your role and iQor a little bit?
Sure. In March, I will have been with iQor for 14 years, which just, wow, it's amazing how fast time flies. I've seen so many things come and go and change, and the technology change, the introduction of AI and generational changes, over time. And I made my career switch about 26 years ago and went out of hospitality after a pretty good stint there, and loved the people side of the business, loved the development side of the business, switched careers into HR, was the chief HR officer, like you had said, for J.K. Harris, and then really wanted to work where I thought you could build a legacy, and that's with helping people grow, both professionally and personally. Even getting to play a little bit of role in that at any level in anybody's life can be really, really satisfying. So that's where I really try to focus now.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you talk about some of these folks that you're working with to help grow and what some of the challenges they're facing are?
We have a leadership competency model at iQor that we built years ago that focuses on 4 levels: leading oneself, so that's also contributors, leading a team, frontline supervisors, leading a department, that's a manager of managers, and leading a vision, that's all SVPs and above. And each of those competencies has, each of those levels has 5 Lominger competencies tied to them. So for instance, like a manager of managers for leading a department, strategic thinking, managerial courage, inspiring others, those are just a few. And so we built a platform a few years ago called the iLead platform that all of our salaried employees at iQor have available to them. So the idea for us was, I have a small team, a relatively large team, in fact, for the BPO business and the OD side of things. But to think about the 4,000 exempt level employees that we support mostly in career development and coaching, it's not huge. So the idea is here, we got to teach people to fish, so they can feed themselves. And by doing that, we created this platform that allows people, it's really a mentoring platform, but there's a 180 competency assessment. So Melissa, if I reported to you and I lead a department, you take a survey with multiple questions, say on managerial courage, and I would do the same. And then that delta in between, we could talk about during our monthly iLead mentoring session. So if for anything else, we can collaborate and and hone in on exactly what you think you're saying, I think I'm saying, and what the reality is in the middle, right?
I
And
love that.
yeah, and then we even have a task-based assessment, think job description, where we can
Hmm.
lay out the skills based on a position. We can do it for any position. And then we capture the personal and professional goals as well. And we have all the training and workshops. We have a coaching workshop where we teach leaders how to develop people, not like KPI performance-based coaching, but rather people-based, career-based coaching and what the difference is. So if at iQor, it's sort of our theme that, you know, if you're not developing your people as a leader, you're really just an administrator. And,
Right.
right now, seems like AI is taking a lot of those administrator jobs. So let's work on, lifting up our people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. And I love the way that you're running that program to find kind of like a core, thing to talk about per each like mentoring session. I think that can be a challenge sometimes. It's like, what do we talk about in this? But
Yeah.
why don't you talk to, whether it's the folks in these iLead in the iLead program or in other programs, like what are some of the biggest workforce development challenges that you're trying to solve for and how are you approaching those in these programs?
Seems like of late there's a lot and it's global, right? Some things I think are kind of universal for new leaders, whether I'm, culturally, if I'm in Trinidad or if I'm in the Philippines or, we're opening a new a center in Cairo, Egypt. That's going to be awesome to learn a brand new culture and learn how the people think and grow. But we have a lot of cross functional people that manage people in other countries as well. So, like my staff is all over the world, and teaching leaders to how to sort of do that and meet people where they're at so that they understand that it's not a transactional conversation, that leaders have to be authentic and caring. We have a lot of our culture here at iQor is really, really open and really healthy. And so we try to create that. So I think some of the things that we see that are really difficult to say, generational coaching, for
Yeah.
instance. Yeah, if I've got a supervisor who's say 23 and they've got an agent who's 60, who's in the US, right? And they're managing it from the Philippines remotely. What's that going to look like? And so we've created some training around that, along with workshops where we talk about it, walk through it. We're actually using some AI simulation tools as well, like with Second Nature, so we can begin to craft what those conversations might look like. Yeah, and integrate that into like a self-help portal. Some of those things that we're working on here in the future to help people do that. A lot of that can even the future of our particular business, as calls are listened to, there'll be prompts and different things. We don't see AI necessarily replacing our people. We see them making better and better employees who understand and how to leverage technology. So customers are happier and you get it right the first time and all those things that you hope for, and hopefully make their job a little bit easier at the same time. Because it can be scary, especially when you start in a business and you're trying to learn that, opposed to all the people that have been doing it for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of those challenges you talked about are definitely things that we're seeing kind of across the board.
Yeah.
And, it's really cool to see how people are solving for them and how they're kind of weaving AI in there to help solve for them. I love the idea of like AI simulation tools. That's super cool. Thinking about, with all this rapid change that's happening, as the skill sets needed for success are continuing to shift also at a very rapid rate,
Yeah.
what strategies does your team use to ensure that the workforce is staying adaptable and prepared?
Well, a lot of open communication. I know this may not be the strategy like a specific methodology that I'm going to give you, but a couple of things that we do, and I think we do really well, is one, we're very operationally grounded. So my team is actually out in the field. We walk the floors. We get to know the people. Most of the people I pick are from operations, so they understand the jobs that people are doing. You don't just want a talking head talking to you about this, that, or the other, right? We actually come in and address real technical issues. So if there's a coaching technique that could be could be done better, or we have some kind of technology, we'll work with people right at the ground level, and we'll collaborate with IT and ops and everything, so that whatever we work on or put out is really answering the needs of those that we serve. So one strategy is that, one, we're very open-minded. We're going to make mistakes, but we want to hear what you have to say, and we will change and adapt. I always tell my team that if we're not the grease that makes the wheel spin, they don't need us. So yeah, so if we're not really in it, right? A lot of times you'll see OD groups, and I'm not putting anybody down, or HR, and there's kind of like a gap, right? But the key here is you've got to make yourself so needed, by those that you serve, that you become part of that, woven into the fabric of what they do. And if you can break that from a strategy standpoint, you've really guaranteed the success of your OD team or the need of your OD team going in the future.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love what you mentioned about like collaborating with IT. We're hearing that more and more
Yeah.
from HR and L&D folks, and the importance of working with IT to make sure that it's not only like the content and what you're delivering, but in the capacity that you're delivering it, and making
Yeah.
sure that it's, very easy to consume. How does your team kind of assess and address skills gaps to stay agile in such a changing environment?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that was like one of the hardest things to figure out how to do and measure forever. But when we started utilizing these competency assessments within our framework of the iLead program, we can do a before and after. So, for instance, we did for leading a team, which is frontline supervisors. One of our biggest challenges in one of our offshore locations was resolving conflict. New managers were having a tough time dealing with just the issues all the people issues that they had, right? And doing it in a caring way, right? And so how do you measure that? How do you even identify what components of that you need to work on? So luckily we have a question for resolving conflict that has multiple questions underneath it. And so we reassessed everybody using the iLead program. So we got the managers of those supervisors to do an assessment, and the supervisors looked at the gaps, took a look at both, benchmarked that, spent 6 months in blended learning and in classrooms and talking and focus groups on how to change that dynamic between. And it's not easy, by the way, because it's always evolving. You always have new people, so it's not like it's not a one and done fix. It's the changing of the culture. But how do you measure even made an impact? And then we redid it 6 months later, and we could see a pretty significant improvement in the overall competency ratings from both the individuals and the supervisors, of those supervisors, the managers, to show that they felt like their people had gotten better. Just as a side note, it was all the supervisors thought they were better than the managers thought they were, like on every single one of them. So everybody rated themselves higher, which I thought was it. And so actually, the supervisors came down a bit, the managers came a little bit afterwards. So it was pretty good signaling that we had tapped into the right kind of things to do to address the skill gap. But that is incredibly hard to measure. Not just some formula that comes out of AI. To really put numbers to that is really difficult. So it was a pretty big milestone for us when we were able to do it for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. That's huge. That's one of the things that we hear folks really struggle with. Like, how do you put numbers to some of these things? And sometimes you can't, sometimes it is
Sometimes
the
you can't.
very
There's
like
just too many other
powerful,
factors. Yeah.
yeah, anecdotal conversations that you're having. But speaking of measuring, how do we talked about skills gaps, but how do you measure the effectiveness of your programs? And do you have any kind of, core KPIs that line up with the success of your programs that you're watching?
So again, we're not operations, right? I'm not building widgets. So as you just said a couple of minutes ago, sometimes it's hard to measure some of that. But our programs, our developmental programs, also feed the leadership pipelines. So for instance, in last year, in 2024, 86% of all of our frontline supervisor positions were hired internally. So we had a goal to raise that to 95, which none of us really thought we could actually do because it's such a high goal. I'm not sure that's possible with new business and everything, but we figured we'll give it a try. So far, we're at 92%. Right. So there's a gap. And then we have a program called Scholars, right? We want everybody to come from the Scholar program, but sometimes the growth is so fast, we have to make exceptions. So that exception gap can be measured. So the better we get at identifying the workforce needs and forecasting, the better my team gets at filling every single spot, right? So every iTrack session, every session within the iLead session between a leader and the person that reports to them, their mentee, has an iTrack rating that goes with it, a survey track. So it's on a 1 to 5 scale, like a net promoter score, right? Along with comments. Now, a mentor, they can't see the comments and they can't see the ratings, but we can. So every month my team goes in and looks at anything at a 3 or below, looks at the comments and see if there's anything that might need to be addressed or things like that. So, that's a measurement for us. But we've also gone back and taken a look at the cost savings that our internal programs provide, these developmental programs, opposed to hiring people externally, right, and promoting them internally. And it's pretty significant. Tougher things to measure are, and we're trying, but it's hard, the ramp up speed, for instance, of hiring an outside supervisor to somebody that you promote internally, right? The quickness to effectiveness kind of a ratio. There's a lot of things that go into those factors. But we have multiple KPIs that we use now. But it's taken time over the years to kind of figure out what they are. You can always give, completion rates, which we do, right? Those are the traditional ones that we've gotten, 100 people have completed this, and we have survey scores and everything else. But some of these other things that we're working on, we're trying to show the impact. And certainly we can show a financial impact on the career pathing programs.
That's awesome. Can you speak a little bit about, you've mentioned this iReady program, or sorry, iLead program. Can you speak about the iLead program a little bit, and or do you have a different example of a case study or an initiative that you can point to and say, this has been super successful and this is why?
Well, luckily we have lots of programs that, that we could do, because our iLead program is only for our salaried people, right?
Sure.
We still have 35,000 other employees that we're responsible for helping. Um, oh, I love our scholar program. It's been in place since 2017. Again, I gave you the stats on it just last year, let you know that 92% of our internal hires this year for our frontline positions. Why would you pick iQor over another company to come work for, especially in the BPO space where, say, the pay is more challenging? It might be if you go with a big brand and go to opposed to a brand that represents brands, sometimes you can initially make a little bit more money. So what draws them here? So we focused on career pathing and opportunities to grow. So I have people that, that have completed the scholar program 7, 8 years ago that are now directors that started as agents. And to have those legacy conversations with those folks, right? To know that we've helped somebody who is maybe 21, 22 now. This isn't about ages. It can happen at any age, but let's say they're 30, right? They've started a family and now they have a director level pay, right? That puts them in a completely different position, and it helps their career at a younger age, or wherever they're at in their career, really have something that they can grow on. And so my team's really focused on lifting people up and moving them forward. We have so many stories like that. We actually publish stories like that as well. We put them out in our newsletters, and we have a group called the C3 group, that's Connected Culture, kind of like diversity and inclusion part of our company. We talk a lot about how these career path programs can lift people up and how they grow within iQor. I think our scholar program is hugely successful, and we're very open to feedback and changing. And that's the nice thing. That thing has changed so many times in the last 7 or 8 years to accommodate the changing and needs for the company, feedback that we get, people where they're at, and the skills that they need work on.
That's awesome. And what a cool combination of like a program that you've had for a while and is continuously successful. But the reason it's continuously successful, I think, is the key point that you just mentioned there, is that you've adapted it over
Yeah,
the
you have to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Mark, can you talk a little bit about the role technology plays in your programs?
Sure. Well, it's gotten better, honestly. And I love AI. I gotta tell you, really, I use it all the time. In fact, I'll give you an example of that right now. We're the iLead program. I'm working with the vendor, and we've designed a mentor bot. And the mentor bot will remember all that information that I told you that was available inside the iLead platform? Well, we're going to be able to have 4 questions that we've created the questions for, that a mentor can click, that will help them with their coming sessions and the things that they need to work on for their mentors. We may even get to the point where they record the sessions, so all the information is in there. We're not quite there yet, but it's going to allow us to frame up the entire conversation the way that we would want them to speak to that person, with hints, talk to them about this. Here's where the information is located. We can make them a smart mentor, right? And that's like, it won't be scripted, but it'll be there to help them. And something like that, that's really leveraging technology to me in an incredible way. From a learning and development standpoint, AI is the future. And, the idea of adaptive learning is where we're headed. I work with several large organizations and sit on a couple of boards, and we're really looking at, individualized learning opportunities. So think about when you sit down and you go into a classroom, or you're here, you're working from your computer, and the system can quickly identify the best learning types that work for you, the things that you're interested in, craft the learning so that it's really relevant to you and your particular position. Can very quickly, maybe there's a personality assessment in there. I mean, it can really get to know you, and it can teach you like it's real. And I obviously, I love science fiction. It's all around me here. And so, it could maybe put me on the bridge of the Star Trek Enterprise, to learn how to develop something new, or have a conversation where I don't even realize that my skills are improving because I'm so interested in how I'm doing it. And that's really, it's already happening now. It's not like this is Mark's idea. That's happening right now as we speak. People are developing that. I've seen some of those systems already.
I love that idea of adaptive learning, just that you were talking about, and how individualized it's going to get, and like the nuances of that individualization. Like I don't even think we've
It's
fully
pretty cool.
realized yet. Yeah, it's really cool. Speaking of AI, obviously the future. Talk to me a little bit about, you've obviously got a lengthy career in this space. Talk to me a little bit about, some of the things that you've seen, kind of the key takeaways maybe from the past 5 years, and how are you seeing, the core takeaways from the past 5 years kind of move forward through the next 5 years, even with, all the new rapid change with technology and things like that.
Well, that's a lot, right? That could. How long do we have? Uh,
Yeah.
I, I think that it's most important to work on your own personal skill sets. Never stop learning, and don't get fixed. Don't get a fixed mindset. Oh, be open to change, and don't be afraid of it, because it's going to happen, and you're either going to be part of it or it's going to pass you by. And that gap, like you said, last 5 years, the last 10 years, my career, that gap's going like this, right? And you got to be like, everything could change tomorrow, right? And we've got to be ready to go, be agile enough to take a turn, take the punches, leave the past behind, and move forward. And I think you only do that from being transparent with people. If you don't know, tell them you don't know. Then go find out. Ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to those that you know. I always think that everybody does want to help. That's sort of my premise. And thank you. And I know that sounds odd, but right now, more than ever before, people see it. Social media, they see everything. You better be transparent and honest, because credibility can be lost in a conversation. And so I think it's more and more important. In the past, you could kind of have a second life. You could kind of not be, front and center. Now you got to be kind of pay attention to your brand, is what I would say, and continue to work on it. Don't, your career may not finish where you started. So you may have to, especially who's ever coming behind us, this new group of young HR leaders and OD leaders, this is going to be a heck of a mix of people, because you're going to have to be jack of all trades. It's not going to be somebody with just a 4-year degree and no experience coming in and getting a job. They want people that understand people. So that's what I would focus on. I know there was a lot, but you asked a lot.
Yeah, no, I know. I love that. And I think those are really big. I mean, just being agile, I think, through COVID, through that was like, yeah, okay, we've got to be. It's like we went through
Yeah,
COVID, and
it was
then
rough.
crazy like tech change, rapid change with AI. It's happening so quickly right now. We're going through it. So I think that's a phenomenal takeaway, and something that, it's no longer a like, yeah, it's good to be agile. It's like, no, you have to be agile now, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
a different thing. You just gave a lot of really good tips, but if you had to give maybe what one, most important lesson that you've learned on your journey that you would pass on to someone just starting out on theirs, what would it be?
Oh, I hope I can say it without getting choked up. Don't wish your days away, right? The hours are long, but the days are short, and so are the years. And there's so much that we need to be thankful for today. Somebody else has always got it worse. Normally, whenever anybody asks me how I'm doing, I always tell them that every day's a gift. And that's how I start every time. I've done it for years. And when you start thinking like that, you realize there are no guarantees, um, that if you have health and your family and you're able to take care of yourself and those around you, and you have people that love you and you have good friends, then you are as rich as anybody can ever be. And all this fame and all this stuff that's fleeting, you can't take any of that with you, right? So you better take care of those around you. And I only think that, your leaders aren't just people that run companies. Leaders are people at home. Leaders are people among their friends, right? We all lead something, and we better be really good leaders of ourselves, in order to help other people, because building that legacy of your friends and your family and children, maybe, and the different things that are here when we're not, everything else goes away except the things that you've helped people become. And so, you know, as now that I'm in, say, the fourth quarter of my career, that's all I'm focused on, Melissa. I really am. Is this good for everybody? Is this something that's going to benefit, people in the time that I have that left? And I say that with hoping I have tons. In fact, my uncle just turned 90. He turns 90 tomorrow. And we took a trip to Ireland 3 weeks ago and spent 12 days in Ireland. And it was amazing. And I built so many memories that I never thought I would have. And when I got back from that trip, it reiterated everything that I just told you, right? So go on vacation, take the time off, be with your friends and your family, care about the people around you. Tell them, for God's sake, you love them, right? If you're not getting along with somebody, figure out a way to do it. Sometimes there's emotional cancer and you got to cut the cord, but that needs to happen too, right? So you can be who you need to be in life.
Mark, that's so beautiful and hits really close to home as a mom of small children who's, balancing a career and kiddos right now. And sometimes those days feel real long, but the years are going by very
Yeah.
quickly. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's really a beautiful note and a really great way to end this episode. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Awesome. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of NovoEd Talks.